The latest development on Deion Sanders is something that Colorado fans should be thrilled about. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Joining me today is Dukes, the Scoop, Phillip Dukes, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Locked On Buffs is free and available wherever you get your podcast, by the way. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. We are almost to college football season. We're about a month away. Colorado plays on August 29th. So it's a month from 6 days from now. So we're almost there. Dukes, I appreciate you hopping on. We got to talk all things Colorado because even though it's been somewhat of a quiet offseason, I think the biggest news around Colorado has been Coach Prime's health. And you had the pleasure of talking with Deion Jr., Bucky, the other day, and sort of talk to me about what you learned or took away from that conversation.
Man, I think got a better understanding of who he is within their family and within the program. I thought one of the best things that may be going under the radar is that he's also a former Division I player athlete who's been raised and trained by Deion Sanders. So he's like even though he's walking around with the camera and giving everybody a look into behind the scenes, he even mentioned that sometimes I had to turn the camera off and just, try to, I'm almost like an extra coach at times. Not saying that he's actually coaching, but, for him to be able to just have his experience and to be able to see things that, let's say if he's just watching and he has a conversation with his dad, like those are things that, some things that maybe his dad may have missed that a son can go back and say, hey, Dad, we're just eating dinner. Hey, I noticed this when I was recording earlier. So I think just having him being around the program is a plus. And then two, as far as Coach Prime's health, just, there were some issues there, some serious issues. I don't think anybody knew what the issues were besides the immediate inner circle. I don't know. But I think the best part about it is that they're coming out of it. You're on they say you go into a curve slow and you come out fast. And I think that's the same thing that Coach Prime is doing. He even said that they're expected to be in Colorado this week, chronologically from last week. So maybe I'm thinking Coach Prime is in Tampa Bay as we're recording. So I think there's a world where you see Coach Prime in Colorado by the weekend or over the weekend. So I think that's got to be exciting for the Buffaloes to see their leader back.
Yeah, and I think the one thing, Deion Sanders Jr., really good player, played at SMU, was a really good returner. So go check out the film there if you haven't already. He had the difficulty of carrying the namesake, which is always a challenge with athletes because it's like Michael Jordan Jr. Are you going to be Michael Jordan? Bronny James, I think people forget, is LeBron James Jr., right? So it gets a little difficult out there to carry the namesake of your father sometimes. But I think the thing that impressed me the most from your interview, aside from your interviewing skills, of course, is the fact that Deion Jr. is like the representative of the family in a way sometimes, where he's like the PR person, if you will, right? So he's like, we've been dealing with some things behind closed doors. We're figuring out, we're going to be in Tampa. We're going to be in Cleveland. They're going to stop by each of his younger brother's training camps. And then they're going to be back to business. And I think hearing that for Colorado fans is reassuring. I talked about this throughout the offseason, and I always give this disclaimer because you know how people get. I understand Deion Sanders needed the time to recover for his health concerns. I get that. I remember that I don't even know what he had, but I had COVID for like a week and it knocked me out, and I needed like a week to recuperate. So whatever he had that made him lose the 14 pounds, I'm sure it took a lot out of him as a person. I'm sure it took a lot out of him just mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and all that. But I do think obviously him not being at Colorado changes the dynamic of Colorado without him, right? And so sort of talk to me what Colorado's getting in him coming back, right? Besides him getting to meet some of the new players.
One, I think the most important thing is you get a spiritual uplift from somebody who's a huge man of faith. And if you are somebody who chose to be a part of this program, you knew what you were getting into because that's a guy who leads by faith. So being able to see and also just seeing a recovery story. I think that nobody really knows what happened, but in order for him, it's not like Coach Prime was out on a book tour. It's not like he was out shooting a movie. He wasn't out shooting commercials. There was a difference. There's been times where you could see Coach Prime where he could check back into Colorado and then go do something else in the offseason. Well, this isn't that time. This has been, hey, look, I'm not even doing anything, barely any media. So I think that seeing him moving around, it's almost like having an injured player that you see make their when they go off the field and they put their hand up, or seeing an injured player come out to the 50-yard line after they return from injury. I think it always gives the team a boost, and I think seeing Coach Prime back walking around, having fun, being energetic, I think the team got a huge boost by seeing him being his old self at Big 12 Media Days. So I think just by being able to see him experiencing his energy in person, which you haven't done for a while, I think it'll be good. It'll be a boom for the Buffaloes as a whole, and not even to mention as far as recruiting. I think seeing him back in that in his old form, being able to be around, and he's still been handling phone calls and things of that nature, but just seeing him in the building, so it could kind of negate some of that negative recruiting. It's like, is Coach Prime even going to coach this year? I think now that you see, he's like, hey, he's definitely coaching, and it's not that he's not just going to be coaching. He'll be coaching with a chip on his shoulder. So I think that all of these factors are going to be important for the Buffaloes, and I think it's exciting to see Coach Prime get back to Boulder.
Yeah, I think when you get a call from Deion Sanders, it kind of just hits different, right? There's just, I mean, when you look around college football, and I could be missing maybe anyone really, but there aren't many head coaches, we'll say, that have played at the highest level, let alone played at the highest level in the manner that Deion Sanders has, which is a gold jacket. He's a Hall of Famer at both the college football and pro football levels. And I honestly can't think of another coach, and I'm probably going to get grilled in the comments, but I don't think there's as many coaches that have even close to a resume that Deion Sanders has as a player. And so he also has a cultural impact, and he just rejuvenates the program, right? And I think we both alluded to that earlier. He just rejuvenates the program, sort of generates that buzz that Colorado was missing. It did feel like Colorado was awfully quiet off season, which is rare for the Deion Sanders era because they've been so active. And so seeing him at Big 12 Media Day, like you said, that was a big deal, right? I think especially when he deflected that one question about his health. He was like, I'm not here to talk about it. I'm here to talk ball. I'm here to talk about my team. He showed he's ready. He showed he's focused on the season ahead of him. And I think, like you said, Colorado fans should be excited about that. We're going to talk about more what you guys should be excited about, our expectations for the team this upcoming season. But first, a quick break. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. Now, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, Scotty Scheffler shout out, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you could get on the game, while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. I use FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with daily new promotions and fun ways to bet. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm joined by Dukes. Dukes, we have college football in about a month, right? It's August 29th is when Colorado makes its debut. We're recording this on July 23rd. Man, I miss football. I miss talking about actual things happening. But we get to talk about what we think will happen. And I think the general consensus about Colorado from those national media members is that there's going to be a huge step back because they lost Shador, they lost Travis, they lost LeJohntay, Jimmy, Shiloh, Cameron Smith-Craig. And I think people are writing Colorado off. Do you get that same vibe? And why do you think that's happening?
I 1000% I get that vibe. And secondly, I think it's happening because you don't understand where the production is going to come from. When you don't have documented success or you don't have documented production previously, it's hard for you to imagine a world where you can rebound from the Johnny Unitas and the Heisman Trophy winner leaving your program, and especially when the Heisman Trophy winner was the Biletnikoff and a finalist for the Thorpe. So, yeah, it's like, the average person, if I'm not watching Colorado, the first thing I'm thinking is no way they're good after losing so much. Perfect example, there's a coordinator in the SEC who ranked, let's say, for the total season, he ranked, let's say, bottom 6 in the SEC. Okay. And so when other teams read that scouting report, they say, oh, man, well, this guy was a bottom 6 coordinator. but he's one of the hottest coordinators in the company, because if you just go by the stat box, then you see, all right, well, he was bottom 6. But if you look at SEC games and if you actually watch the games, then you know that that team was a lot better than what the final box score showed. And I think a lot of media pundits only get to see the box score, so they don't have any idea of what the team looks like. They have no idea about who was waiting in the wings. They don't follow recruiting, and they probably haven't been following Colorado in the transfer portal as closely as probably you and I. So with that being said, that's probably why they're being where they are on Colorado football. And then secondly, a lot of people still just aren't sold on Coach Prime.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things too, and we probably could have talked about this in the first segment. I think when Deion Sanders isn't generating headlines, people are like, "Oh, it's done," right? That's an indication that the football team's done. And at Big 12 Media Day, this was, I think, probably the most interesting thing he said. This team is better than the team he had last year, right? That last year, he admitted they're not going to have the stars of Shedeur and Travis, and I think it'd be, I mean, if you could somehow find back-to-back generational stars, like, I mean, give that person a medal of honor, give him the key to the city. I don't know what you give him, but you got to give him something, right? Because replacing Travis and Shedeur is not easy. But Deion Sanders did say that this team is more well-rounded, right? And I think that starts with the offensive line being better, which, I mean, it's year 3. I think they put in significant effort into finding guys who have played a lot of offensive line snaps, who played at Big Ten, SEC schools. And I think that they put in the appropriate amount of efforts to fill those gaps, right? And I don't think it's easy to replace Travis Hunter. I think replacing Travis Hunter on offense will probably take 2 people, right? I think, and you lose LeJontay as well, who was really good. Will Shepard, who was really good. He signed with the Packers earlier this week, by the way, for those of you that didn't know. And then defensively, I think Colorado had the best secondary in the Big 12 last year, and I don't think it was noticed because one of the islands was Travis Hunter, but DJ McKinney is really good. Preston Hodge is really good. They have RJ Johnson. They have Tion Parks, who they brought in from Illinois State. They have so many names and guys who have proven that they could play. And I just don't think college football has noticed it yet. And I think they will, right? And let's talk about week 1, because they're being tested with the program from your neck of the woods. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are making the trip to Boulder. Tell me and everyone from Colorado what to expect from that matchup, because I think Haynes King is probably one of the grittiest quarterbacks in the country. He's going to, I predicted yesterday his stat line. I don't know how many yards he's going to throw for, but 20 carries for like 70 rushing yards. I feel like that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. They're going to try to run the ball down their throats. Basically, I don't see it any other way. When you look at that backfield, when you got a guy like Jamal Haynes, who's one of the best runners, I think he's probably the best running back in Georgia Tech since Jahmyr Gibbs, and you see what he's doing in the NFL. So I think what they're going to be able to do, then you bring in a guy, so they lose Eric Singleton, but you go and get like a carbon copy of him in Eric Rivers. So out of the transfer portal, I believe he came from FIU or FAU. I believe it's FIU though. I'm gonna check that out. But one of those, Florida, Atlantic, or International, is one of the two. But he's phenomenal. So when you think about what they've been able to add as far as offensively, they're going to look a lot like they looked last year. And a lot of people are saying, well, if you lose Eric Singleton, can you take the top off? You absolutely can. Then when you go defensively, the defensive line does have some questions, but I think their secondary is probably one of the best in the ACC. You bring in a guy like Daquan White, who's Atlanta legend, basically, comes back home after a very successful career at Eastern Michigan. What conference is that? MAC, all MAC as a freshman. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what they're able to do, and I think they're a sleeper in the ACC. With that being said, I just think that Colorado has fixed some of the holes that they needed to fix, and I think they used a 2-word phrase to fix their run game on defense, and that's Jaheim Otis. I think with him, he solves a lot of those problems in that A gap that you were seeing last year, and I think you got some linebackers that can really run ahead and they're going to be tough. So I think it's going to be more of that. What is it? Unstoppable force versus immovable object, and I think who's ever standing in the fourth quarter, I think that's who wins the game, because I think these are two teams that really want to run the ball.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Jaheim Otis, I was told by someone from Alabama that if he is able to sort of find that constant motivation and sort of find that constant energy, he's an All-American, right? That is literally his potential. That is his ceiling. And I think having an All-American caliber guy in the interior in the Big 12, I think that moves mountains for you, right? I think that accentuates your pass rushers and makes their life easier, right? You can't double a pass rusher if you got to worry about doubling the interior guy. You can't worry about, oh, we're going to try to run it down their throats. Well, it's like, okay, we just ran it down their throats 5 times and we got 6 yards, right? So you have to pay attention to the Otis effect. Let's just talk about the Colorado from an overall perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the 3 things that excite you the most? Because for me, I think it's the evolution of the run game. I think there is going to be a run game, which I guess you can't really call it an evolution if there wasn't one. But Caden Salter's there. You have a stable of running backs who I think are hungry. You have Marshall Faulk teaching them everything there is to know about being a running back. Who better to learn from, right, than one of the best to ever do it? And you just need a run game, right? I think, and I say this all the time, Shedeur Sanders wasn't the conventional dual threat quarterback. He wasn't Lamar Jackson. He wasn't Josh Allen, where he's going to burn you with his legs for 70 yards, but he kept plays alive, right? He's like Patrick Mahomes in that sense, or Ben Roethlisberger in that sense as well, where they're moving around in the pocket and keeping plays alive. And he did a lot of that because the offensive line was so poor. I think a good run game can take the pressure off Caden Salter. So that's one of the things I'm excited for. The new receivers, and then can Robert Livingston sort of replicate a year 2 performance as a defensive coordinator like he did in year 1? Those are the things that excite me. What about you?
I'm gonna go with the linebacker core. I know that's where there's been a cause of concern for a lot of people, but I'm excited to see this trio. I think Sean Myers in North Alabama, I think he plays, and I think he plays a lot. He can quarterback that defense, somebody who has that traditional toughness between the tackles. I think that's what they were looking for as far as quote unquote a green dot guy, somebody that you put the mic in his head, gets everybody, basically the quarterback of your defense, who I think in years past may have been Cameron Seaman Craig. And I think Nakai Green or Hill Green kind of picked that up as the season went on last year. So I'm really excited to see Sean Myers with Martavius French and Reggie Hughes, 2 running hit guys. When you have that combination that you can, and they're all able to play with each other, I think it does wonders when you talk about the second level of that defense. When you aren't able to tee up a speed, when you know that you may see any combination of the 3 and they can all be effective, whether it's run or pass, I think that's really, really a tool that needs to be utilized, and I think it will be this year. I think another thing that I'm really excited about is to see who emerges in the safety room. My sleeper is Terrence Love. I've been watching him his whole life. Former quarterback. Actually, there was a time where he and Juju Lewis were kind of 1 and 2 in Atlanta as far as saying who was the best quarterback, with Julian Lewis actually playing up. But Terrence Love, as far as his knowledge of the game, being a cerebral guy, been a amazing student since he's, the talk in Atlanta was always like, is he going to be a astronaut? Is he going to be a football player? Because that's how good he was in the classroom. And to see how he's developed and changed his body, there was a time where they thought that he was going to be a linebacker because he was 6'2.5", 6'3". They say he could wear 230 pounds easily. Well, he's gotten into yoga. He's watched his diet, so now he's comfortably at about 205 to 208 pounds. So I'm really excited to see his physicality because he had an amazing spring. And I think last year, if anybody remembers when I was still on 3, anybody who asked me about what Colorado got in Colton Hood, I said everything I heard out of Auburn was that he had the best spring of anybody in the secondary, and he could be a starter at Auburn. Well, this is the same thing I heard about Terrence Love. Had the best spring of anybody in the secondary. It could have been a starter at Auburn. So I'm really excited to see if Terrence Love can kind of regain some of that momentum he had coming out of high school at Colorado. And I think, lastly, I'm excited to see which iteration of the offensive line is the one that takes you to the finish line. I'm going to make a prediction. The first offensive line that you see won't be the last one. I think that as pieces get changed and you probably get around to like game 3 or game 4, you'll find out who's the guy. Like Cass Cleveland became a revelation right around Texas Tech game. So I think you'll see somebody step up. And when you go as deep as Colorado can with guys who can actually play, there were guys on the team last year who could not help you on the offensive line. They just couldn't. I think that you can get 1 through 10 on the offensive line. You can find a guy that can help you somewhere. And I think by having that type of competition, that type of talent level, by raising the floor and also the ceiling when you top grade, I think it leaves. The I guess the opportunities or the possibilities is the word I'm looking for. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I think Colorado with an average offensive line last year is a playoff team easily.
Yeah,
I think it really, because this is how I try to explain to people, because this is the easiest way to do it. Shedeur Sanders was sacked, I think, 40, 50 times last year. just give Shedeur Sanders 20 more times to find Travis Hunter and tell me that doesn't lead to like 5 or 6 more touchdowns, right? Like that's
Right.
just how it works, right? You have more opportunities. And so I look forward to seeing the offense line as well. I agree with your prediction. I do think the offense line, I want to say they brought in, oh my gosh, around 10 to 12 new offensive linemen. And I think that outside of Jordan Seaton, I don't expect anyone to be starting from last year. So I think they're going to mix and match and find that right combination. So I love what you're excited for. I look forward to having you on the show more as the season gets closer. You guys know where to find them, but go plug yourself. Make sure everyone knows where to find you.
Oh man, at Dukes D Scoop, at like you see it right up under my chin, and check me out on YouTube. Got a really good Georgia Tech and Colorado preview out right now. So go check out the content, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you hopping on. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado's latest offer from Florida State. He's a decommitment. That little Colorado-Florida State rivalry lives on, but we're going to take a quick break. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So do me a favor, like, subscribe, follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk Amari Thomas. Just backed off his commitment from Florida State literally on June 18th. Colorado offers him on July 18th. Colorado offers him on July 22nd. Now, South Carolina has been making a huge push for him. He plays for, I believe it's Blountstown, Florida. I don't know the proper name. I was in Miami the other day. I know Miami. But he is a guy that rushed for 1,800 yards this past season, 34 touchdowns, 12.3 yards per carry in 10 games. He also had 14 catches for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. As a sophomore, which the numbers last year were somehow way better than his sophomore numbers, which were also great. 1,300 yards rushing, 22 touchdowns, 8.9 yards per carry. So he's gotten more elusive. He's a guy who's really figured out a way to dominate the high school ranks. 5'10", 187. I think he'll probably play at 5'10", probably 195, 205 at the next level. We'll see how his body develops there. But South Carolina's making a push. Auburn's also offered him. He's got offers from everyone you could think of. Florida, Georgia Tech, Miami, Ole Miss, UCF. Everyone that's in that area wants him, but the Buffs are after him. And I think when Colorado, when you talk about what they need, which he just visited Columbia, South Carolina twice. So I think the Gamecocks have a bit of an advantage. Colorado has some work to make up. But Colorado needs a running back, right? You need consistency in the running back room. And until you find it, you have to keep plucking away, looking for guys, right? Colorado has not had that under Deion Sanders. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher. I think the most that they've had in a season is almost 400 yards. They haven't had a 400-yard rusher in a season, right? So they really need that run game to come alive. And whether that's up to Pat Shurmur, if Pat Shurmur gets replaced for not getting it done, who knows? But listen, you can't win football games and be one-dimensional, right? It only gets you so far. You can only throw 50 times a game and run the ball 10 times a game and win so many games, right? We've seen it with Colorado is their shortcoming at times last year where they couldn't – they had all the pressure on Shedeur in the passing game. And when you have all the pressure on Shedeur Sanders, who is really great, but he has a terrible offensive line, things get difficult. So Amari Thomas is the recruit to look out for the Buffs. I think they're going to go all in on him. I think they really want more running back talent, right? I think losing Brandon Hood hurt. I think losing Isaiah Gustav hurt. And you're really going to want to see Colorado get into the mix here because I don't think they have, outside of Michael Welch, I'll be honest, I don't love the running back room. I think Michael Welch is the bright spot. I think Dallin Hayden has potential. And then the rest of the room, I'm just like filler, right? You need more than filler. You need guys you can rely on. And I don't think Colorado has that. So Amari Thomas could end up being that somewhere down the line for the Buffs. So I'll keep you updated at every step of the way in his recruitment. So appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So do me a favor, like, subscribe, follow, and I will see you guys tomorrow.